Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the new Muscle Intelligence. It is 2025, and we are kicking off this year in typical Muscle Intelligence fashion, creating the most effective protocols to help you optimize your life. I love the concept of helping men and women around the world unleash your personal greatness. Some of you noticed I took a little hiatus, and I'm back. In this episode, I'm going to tell you about my new protocol, my new system for unlocking personal greatness, and how I think we can predictably and reliably increase success, whatever you're after, whether that be increasing your body, increasing your mind, increasing your financial well-worth, or increasing your effectiveness in any area of life. In today's podcast, I'm going to talk to you about this new incredible model that I've been working on for 4 years with my ultra high net worth clients, guys who ultimately have increased their net worth, increased the value of their businesses, and ultimately increased their fulfillment in life. I'm also going to talk to you about my lifestyle operating system method, which ultimately allows us to look at our lives objectively and create the most effective interventions. Hold on tight. We're coming at you with a brand new edition of the Muscle Intelligence Podcast. All right, here we go. Ladies and gents, welcome back. So as I said in the intro, I've been gone for a while. I stopped the podcast in February, and everyone's like, what's going on? You bring it back? Yep, I'm bringing it back, and bringing it back with a vengeance. I love podcasting. I love having great conversations. Many of you know I started the podcast in 2013. I was one of the OGs in the podcasting space, and I did it, to be honest, because I wasn't a great communicator, and I wanted to be better. And I wanted to be better at asking questions and being interested in other people. And it was one of the best things I ever did, not just for the notoriety and the public exposure, but truly to develop who I am. I learned so much, met so many incredible people. And this year, last year in about January in 2024, I felt like I was losing the passion. As many of you know, podcasting now is massive. It's everywhere. Everyone's got a podcast. Everyone's talking about the same thing. All the guests are very, very similar. And I didn't want to do it like everyone else. I hate the idea of doing it like everyone else. And so, the video quality is okay, and the audio quality was okay, and, the distribution of the podcast was okay, and the messaging was okay, and it was all okay. But it wasn't at my standard. It wasn't something that I was putting out that I could be absolutely proud of. And I want to bring so much value to you. I want to bring so much value to the listener because I really, really respect your time. I realize how valuable time is. I realize how valuable my time is. And for someone to be putting out something that was just a regurgitation of someone else's information, to me, is a waste of time. As someone who values effectiveness in my life, as someone who maybe classifies myself as someone who's successful in life, what I'm looking to do with my time is condense learning. So when you come to a podcast, if it takes an hour to get to one single point, I think we missed the message. I think we missed the point. What I hope to do is make these podcasts so action-packed with value that we edit out all the nonsense. We take away all the things that are not directly contributing value, and we ultimately give you the goods. We give you the condensed package of the actionable items, the theory, because some people need theory. I believe that progress as far as understanding knowledge requires three things. We require theory, we require practice, practical application, but we also require caring, meaning from a coaching perspective, if someone's just dumping information on you, but they don't actually care about you, where you are, what's important to you, then we've kind of missed the boat. And so I spent this entire year reflecting on my life and reflecting on the men that I get to work with every day. And I feel so unbelievably blessed to work with some of the world's most successful men. And success as measured in not just monetary prowess and monetary ability, but in how are they showing up in each of their domains of life. And these guys are guys that I look up to in some domains or all domains of life. And so being able to reflect on what value do I bring to your life? What value do I bring to their life? How am I showing up in my life relative to things that are most important to me? I wanted to restart this podcast and really shift in this direction of helping you, the listener, unlock personal greatness. I'm always on the hunt for personal greatness. And what does that mean to me? Well, ultimately, it means living in alignment with my highest values and expressing the highest and best in everything I do every single day. day to day to day. Now, what's important to you is important, because it's probably different than what's important to me. Maybe if you're here listening, we have a similar value hierarchy. So for me, my family is always going to be at the top of my value hierarchy. Learning and growth is very high in my value hierarchy. My health and my fitness is very high in my value hierarchy. Helping other people unlock their greatness is very high on my value hierarchy. Now, people say, well, why is that very high on your value hierarchy? Well, the truth is, when I was young, I didn't have that person. And it took me a lot of clawing and scratching and fighting to accomplish any semblance of success. And when I finally found a great guide, I was about 19 years old, someone who took me under their wing and said, hey, little man, let me show you what's going on. And I'm not in any way being condescending, calling anyone little man, but that's what happened to me. And it was unbelievable to me what existed in the world beyond my worldview. At 19 years old, I think I'd been on one airplane in my life. I had, mostly lived in my little city, not traveled at all, didn't understand finance. I didn't understand personal development. I didn't understand books. I didn't understand anything. I was really good. I was what I was really good at, and that was a really small number of things. And then as soon as I recognized the power of a mentor, of a guide, of a leader, it blew my mind. And I went from a guy who was maybe a little bit down on life and unsure of my direction to looking like someone had just opened my eyes for the first time to this unbelievable abundance that every day offers, that every day brings if you see it. The truth is, you can do anything, except sometimes someone along the way has put a story there. Maybe it's a belief. Maybe it's become part of your identity around who you are, what you're capable of, what you're not capable of. And that identity or belief system has now created a lifestyle operating system, a way you operate day to day to day that ultimately determines your actions, your habits, and your outcomes. And so your actions, your habits, and your outcomes determine your life. And so if you're someone who's on this trajectory to look for a new path, what you're looking for is a new operating system. We need a new operating system to help us unlock a new way of being. When it comes to training, I have an operating system. I know exactly what I do to get here. I know exactly what I do before I get here and after I get here. And that operating system creates some version of an outcome. And if you're not happy with that outcome, you got to change the operating system. So rather than setting goals for 2025, I want to teach you how to create an operating system. When it comes to nutrition or body fat or body transformation, we all have an operating system. Whether or not you acknowledge it or see it or know it, you're operating in some way. So how I eat from the time I wake up to the time I go to bed, that's an operating system. How I think about food is an operating system. How I think about my business and my relationships and my finances are all simply operating systems that we run generally unconsciously every single day that gives us the outcomes we've got. And so gentlemen, if you want to change your life, ladies, if you want to change your life, you got to change your operating system. And that means looking at the time blocks throughout the day. So if we all operate for about 16 hours a day, so we have 8 hours of rest, well, we have to look at those blocks. Maybe it's a 1 hour block, maybe it's a 90-minute block, maybe it's a 3 hour block. But how am I using those time blocks? So if I have 60 minutes a day for training, well, that's all I can do. And maybe that's all I'm willing to do or all I'm able to do, and that's fine. But now the game I'm playing is not changing the time blocks, it's making the time block more effective. So if you're someone who's already got stories around time, like, I don't have time to do this, I don't have time to do that, great, no problem, don't change it. Change the effectiveness in the time block, because I guarantee there's opportunities within that. If you're someone who isn't managing your time really well, then there's a massive opportunity to change the way that you actually time block. Now, within this video, I want to talk to you about how to actually time block effectively. Now, if you're someone who's lacking fulfillment, or you wish or maybe hope that one day you're going to feel more fulfilled, it is my belief that fulfillment comes when there's an intersection or an alignment between what we value and what we're actually living. Now, our schedule must match our value hierarchy. For example, if I say that I value my family above all, and I look at my schedule and I've got no time allocated to family or one-to-one time with my kids or my family, well, then I'm not living in alignment with it. And guess what's going to happen to my level of satisfaction, fulfillment, and ultimately joy? It's going to feel like a disconnect. I'm going to feel diminished. I'm going to feel like I'm not in alignment with who I am. So if my values are accurate and I actually value my family and my growth and my contribution to you and unlocking your growth, I have to objectively assess how I'm allocating time every day, every week, every month to make sure that that time is properly aligned to my value system. And if it's not, you're always going to feel like I didn't do enough today, or I don't feel good at the end of the day, or I feel unfulfilled. So the lifestyle operating system is a system that I've created that ultimately says, hey, first, let's determine your mission. What's your mission? What's important to you? Most people go, I don't know what my mission is. And that's okay. You don't even have to have an own personal mission, but maybe you align with somebody else's mission. You get behind them and go, yeah, like Elon Musk goes, we're going to Mars. And millions of people go, yeah, we're going to Mars. I want to be part of that. And that becomes their mission. So they work with Elon and they become part of this mission that ultimately changes humanity. Or he says, hey, we're going to create an electric car. And people go, yeah, or we're going to create self-driving cars. Great. That becomes their mission. And it's such an honorable mission to get behind someone else's mission. If you're someone who wants your own mission, you crave your own mission, there's absolutely ways that you can start to identify what your mission is. And so my coach says, if you want to live a life of purpose, start by living a life on purpose. And what that means is, I know it sounds a little bit confusing, but what that means is choose what you do. Start to select what you do. Stop doing the shoulds and have tos and start doing the I want tos. I want to do things on purpose intentionally because I want to select them based on what I want to do, what I value. And what you'll start to see is because you're living life on purpose, the purpose will start to make itself apparent. You'll start to be doing the things and surrounding yourself with people that you value, and that becomes purposeful. And that purpose reveals itself over time. It may take days or weeks or months or years, or maybe you'll find it right now just by thinking about it. But when you start living your life on purpose, you start identifying that mission, that purpose that's important to you. And maybe it's solving some amazing problem in the world. Maybe your purpose and your mission is being the best dad you can be. Maybe the purpose is making millions and millions of dollars so you can retire your bloodline. Maybe your purpose is feeling completely fulfilled so you'll show up at your highest and best for the people that are most important to you. I have no idea, but I hope for your sake and for the world's sake that mission is significant, that mission is massive, because I truly believe in you and your infinite potential. So when people fail or fall short at things, what's the general reason why you say, I didn't do that. I didn't follow through. So it's often in the realm of, I didn't have the time. I got tired. I didn't have the energy. I felt overwhelmed. I didn't have the skills. I didn't believe in myself. I created a bad habit. I felt comfortable, and it felt very uncomfortable to pursue my goals. It's generally in that area. It's some version of overwhelm and self-belief, and didn't have the energy, didn't have the time. Those are the things I hear consistently. And so where this model came from is over the last 4 years, I launched the Muscle Intelligence Coaching, and I've been very blessed to work with 12 guys every year. I take on only 12 guys personally. And it so happens that the guys who find me happen to be very successful guys. And it's not just financially successful. They're doing really well physically. They're doing really well in relationships for the most part. Sometimes that's a challenge. But in general, these guys are really well-rounded, what I would say badass men, guys who I want to emulate in many, many ways. And they come to me to manage their health and their training and their nutrition and their fitness. And what I say is their performance optimization. So I am not a medical doctor, and nothing I say is medical advice. I look for opportunities within your lifestyle operating system, within your health, within your training, to improve the way you look, the way you feel, and the way you perform. I believe when we can unlock better performance, better health, better physical capability, everything gets better. Your energy is better, your focus is better, your confidence is better, your commitment and follow through is better. And so I consider myself a coach of performance and optimization. And really what I'm looking for is opportunities to make what you're already doing more effective. So by working with these guys over the last 4 years, I've been able to see a lot of differences between the guys who succeed and the ones that don't. So what sets people apart who truly succeed and truly follow through almost all the time, right? Or maybe it is 100% of the time. And so the first thing that I see, and the example I often use is I've got some friends who are Navy SEALs, Special Forces, Delta Force kind of guys, and this term comes up is functional capacity. So you may have heard me use this term before, but I think it's really powerful, really important to realize. We all have a current functional capacity, which means my capacity to take on responsibilities and follow through on my word. So someone who's a CEO of a company or a Delta Force type special operator, when they take something on, they get clear, they create a system, and they execute. And they never don't follow through. They may not be perfect, but they get the best version of what they can do right now. And so this functional capacity for these guys and girls is very high. So they can reliably and predictably take on things and hold the responsibility at a high level of follow through. Someone who has a low functional capacity, as an example, maybe a child or someone who doesn't have the ability to hold a job or the ability to follow through on their diet or the ability to follow through in their training. Low functional capacity means I take things on and sometimes I get it done and sometimes I don't. And sometimes it's important and sometimes it's not, but it's not really reliable, right? So if you're someone who tends to be one of these people who, sometimes I get it done, sometimes I don't, I've created a process that can objectify success, high functional capacity, and low functional capacity. So what's the difference between people who have a really high functional capacity and follow through almost all the time, and people who follow through sometimes, but it's sort of unreliable and unpredictable? What's the difference? How do we objectify that? And objectify just means how do we sort of put metrics beside it? It's what I call my Four Resiliency Model of success. And if you're interested in being the best version of yourself this year, and if you're here, I know that's on the top of your list, pay attention. So we have 4 areas that help us unlock functional capacity. First one, physical ability, physical capability. What is physical capability? Literally your ability to do what you want, when you want, with who you want. And this is really important. So what does that mean? If I want to sprint, can I? If I want to swim, can I? If I want to play basketball, can I? If I want to squat, can I? And so physical capability can be directional in nature. So I want to have the ability to do anything I want with who I want, what I want, this limitless body. So we got to train our body in a way that ultimately moves our strengths higher and lifts our weaknesses. So if you're constantly training in the same ways and you're not looking, feeling, and performing the way you want, you got to change the way you train. You got to change your approach. And that means getting strong, and that means improving your mobility, and that means improving your stability, and that means improving your muscularity, and maybe that means improving your aerobic fitness and your VO2 max, and maybe some other version that maybe the skill of swimming and biking and whatever. And so there's a whole number of subcomponents that fall into that physical capability area. What I don't ever want in my life is to wake up one day and go, I can't do this with you kids. I can't play basketball with you. I can't play tag with you. I can't go for a swim with you. I can't go for a bike ride with you because my body's not holding up. My goal now physically is to be an athlete when I'm 80. And so what does that mean? Run, swim, jump, surf, play volleyball, all of it. So I practice these things, not often, but I do. And so physical capability to me is this limitless body. And if your body limits you, if your body has limited you in the last 12 months in any way, meaning I can't walk, I can't run, then you're limited, right? So if the goal is to be limitless, then in every area, then you should be limitless in all areas, right? So let's move from the physical capability, physical resiliency, to the next one, which is psychological resiliency. So psychological resiliency, loosely said, is your mindset. And so sometimes in life, our mind limits us. Our mind limits us in maybe I don't believe in my own ability to follow through. Maybe I don't have confidence. Maybe I'm afraid. Maybe I feel inadequate. Maybe I'm not good enough. I don't want to be embarrassed. And so all of those stories are blocks. They limit us from doing anything. In the last 12 months, ask yourself honestly, has your mindset limited you in any way? And if it has, it's not because that's part of who you are. It's not a part of your identity, or maybe it is a part of your identity, but it doesn't have to be a permanent part of your identity. It can be a temporary part of your state. So it doesn't have to be a trait. It can literally be viewed as a state that you can change if you have the right process and the right follow through. So how do we develop confidence? How do we develop belief in ourselves? How do we develop the desire to move toward things that are hard, challenging, or uncomfortable? Practice. Mental resiliency is a practice. It's literally planning and scheduling your life to expose yourself to things that are going to build these resiliencies, going to build this this psychological resiliency. If you're afraid of something, it limits you. you have to overcome it. You have to slowly, in a graded and gradual way, create some system that allows you to have repeated exposure to where eventually you're like, I'm not afraid anymore. And gentlemen, my belief is that it is the responsibility of men to die without fear. Now, I know that's an extreme statement, and maybe it's not true, but it's a really good moniker to live by. Like, I don't want to live a life of fear and limitation, that I don't believe I can do things, and I take actions based on my limited beliefs rather than my abundant beliefs. Think about it. I want to be someone who lives based on the things I want to do, the things, my dreams, my highest and best, these big, hairy, audacious goals, or these massively transformative purposes in life. Massively transformed. But if you're limited by what you've done in the past or the proof you've had up to this point, then you've got to create a new future for yourself. You've got to create a new outcome. And I believe that your greatest daily opportunity to do this is in training your body. Why? Because what's the hardest thing you do every day? Serious question. What's the hardest thing you do every day? Because within that thing that you do every day is your greatest opportunity to develop yourself, whatever it is. If the hardest thing you do every day is your work, if the hardest thing you do every day is your run, if the hardest thing you do every day is your bicycle, if the hardest thing you do every day is your training, whatever it is, make it the hardest thing you do every day and push yourself mentally and physically toward those barriers, toward these walls that you've created in your mind, and ultimately allow yourself to push beyond them and recognize that you're safe. Because what we do is we start moving those walls further and further away. As we age, I'm not sure if you recognize, sometimes it feels like the walls are closing in around us. Sometimes we create habitual thinking or habitual living that ultimately engulfs us or surrounds us in fear. And all of a sudden it's like, things that didn't used to make me afraid are now like, I don't want to do that anymore. I'm afraid I'm going to get hurt, or I'm afraid I'm going to limit myself. I'm going to do something that's a bad idea. Our tolerance to risk is much less. Now, great, if you're older and maybe you want to have a lower risk tolerance, I get it. But what if you didn't have to be afraid of going for a run? What if you didn't have to be afraid of playing golf? What if you didn't have to be afraid of doing that thing you always wished that you could do? But you've got a story in your head that goes, oh, I'm 50 years old, I'm 60 years old, I can't do it. It's nonsense. It's not true. Your age does not determine your outcomes. Your history does not determine your outcomes. Ladies, gentlemen, you determine your outcomes with your actions and your habits. And it may not be easy, simple, or fast, but it is possible. Moving on to resiliency number 3. So number 1 was physical. Number 2 is psychological mindset. Number 3 is physiological. Now, the exact example I use often is when you do something hard. Let's say you and I get up right now and we sprint as hard and fast as we can one time until we're tired. Go as far as you can until you're tired. Doesn't matter how far you go, but as far as you can until you're tired. Your heart rate's going to hit its theoretical max, and then it's going to start to come back down slowly. For some of us, it may stay elevated for a while, and for some of us, it starts to come back down slowly, and some people, it comes back down pretty quickly. Now, imagine how much of a different experience that is for someone who sprints, and maybe the heart rate hits peak really fast, and it stays up really, really long. They stay in that state of stress, overwhelm, and maybe even anxiety for a really long period of time. What's their likelihood that they're going to want to do that again soon? I don't want to do that anymore. I'm done. How about someone who hits that peak and then kind of comes down really quickly? Like, oh, my heart rate came back down to normal pretty quick. It's like, oh, yeah, I'm ready. Let's go again. And so that is literal physiological resilience, right? So how well does my body tolerate an imposed demand? We get in the cold plunge. How well do you adapt? We get in the sauna. How quickly do you adapt? And so people who adapt slowly go into a state of panic, anxiety, stress, overwhelm, and they think that's part of their reality. They think that's part of their trait, their identity. Well, it's not. It's simply a state. And so we can train our ability to get better at this physiological resilience, meaning the ability to recover fast from this stress. Think of somebody cutting off in traffic and your heart rate staying elevated for a long period of time. Eventually, that state becomes the trait of anxiety, panic, and overwhelm. So if you're someone who feels as though you live in panic, anxiety, and overwhelm, guess what? You can train it. You can train it with this physiological resiliency, which is loosely measured with heart rate variability. But there's a lot of interventions we can apply now to improve your ability to recover. For example, maybe we did bouts of high intensity exercise. Get your heart rate up, train it to come back down. Get your heart rate up, train it to come down. How do we train it to come back down? By relaxing, by breathing, by slowing down, by asking our mind to be calm. And then we go again, and we get back in that high intensity mode, and we eventually decrease the amount of time it takes to come back down. Now, this isn't a fast process. This is going to take you 3 to 4 months at least. This is what I generally call phase 1 of anyone's transformation process, building physiological resiliency. So phase 1 is really focused on building all 4 of these resiliencies. And the 4th and final resiliency may be the single most important. This 4th resiliency generally is the reason why people say, I lack motivation, or I'm not able to do the things that I want to do. And this resiliency is called metabolic resiliency. What is metabolic resiliency? It really just means your ability to produce energy to meet the demands of life. So if we get up and sprint, can you keep up? Or does your energy production fall off really fast? Or can you even sprint at all? Or what if I wanted to, lift? Or what if I wanted to play basketball or swim or save somebody who is in trouble? Do I have the ability to produce energy? Now, so there's multiple levels to this. This is a hormonal influence. There's mitochondrial influences. Certainly there's inflammatory influences. There's a lot of different reasons why your energy production would be low. Maybe your sleep is dysfunctional. So many reasons why your energy would be low. And energy is best thought of in terms of amplitude and duration. So amplitude is I want to run, I want to sprint, I want to fight, I want to do things that are really intense. And duration is how long can I sustain that? And now obviously, generally if amplitude is high, duration is usually short. And if duration is long, usually amplitude is low. But depending on what you're trying to do. Another example is at the end of the day, have you ever said something like, I don't have the energy to play with my kids. I don't have the energy to go out with my partner. I don't have the energy to go to the gym. If any of those have been your story, then you've got metabolic dysfunction or some version of the absence or low-level metabolic resiliency. And so, gentlemen, you can see if we start increasing your energy, all of a sudden you're like, I have all the energy to do the things I need. And if we increase your ability to not be stressed or to experience stress is never going away, but your ability to experience stress and come back out of stress, like, oh, I don't have to stay like that all the time. I don't have to feel like I'm overwhelmed, anxious, and maybe my mind is racing because my heart rate is elevated. Oh, you mean I don't have to experience this inadequacy and lack of self-belief that I've been reinforcing with my inactions? No. You have to create a plan and a process that allows you to identify the biggest levers, what I call your daily top 5. What is your daily top 5? So amongst these 4 resiliencies, you've got 5 things, 5 interventions or new habits that you're going to create that ultimately allow you to unlock the best version of yourself in those areas. Now, if you're like, hey, my energy is really low, well, we got to address your metabolism. So maybe we should do some testing right off the bat to see what metabolically is dysfunctional. Maybe we should improve your aerobic for fitness or your VO2 max. If your stress resiliency is low, maybe we're going to do some high intensity cardio. Maybe we're going to do some breath work. Maybe we're going to do some meditation to allow your body to get out of that constant state of fight or flight. If your physical resiliency is low, gosh, we got to do some training every day. We got to do some strength training, mobility training, effective strength training, or maybe intelligent strength training, not just random stuff you've always done. So, gentlemen, you need a new operating system, looking at those boxes of life and creating the most effective intervention you can. So, gentlemen, the goal, the mission, and the trajectory of Muscle Intelligence and the Muscle Intelligence podcast is helping you to unlock personal greatness, to showing you what you're really, really capable of in 2025 and beyond. And so my goal for 2025 is to give you a new operating system around training, a new operating system around nutrition, a new operating system around finances, a new operating system around thinking. And I'm going to curate the world's greatest humans, at least who I believe to be the world's greatest humans, at least the ones that will come on the show. And the show grows and succeeds and fails based on you, right? And so if we have huge numbers of downloads and huge numbers of views and huge numbers of subscribers, then we can literally ask anyone to come on and help us to support this mission. So this mission is really important to me in my heart. And if you're someone who really believes that you're capable of more than you're currently living, then join me on this mission. Join me on this mission, not just to unlock your personal greatness, but to take what you learn and take what you develop and share that with the world. Help those people around you to unlock their personal greatness. I believe we're all capable of so much more than we realize. And the reason I've come to know this is stepping on stage for the Mr. Olympia contest was probably the furthest thing from what everyone in my childhood would have told you I'm going to do when I grow up. So if you see photos of me, and maybe I can attach a photo of me in this video, and if you see photos of me when I was 7 to 14, maybe 7 to 13. I didn't have any muscle. I looked like a potato, and my body fat was probably 35% body fat. Reason aside, it doesn't matter what the reason was. The reality was, if you would have asked anyone in my life, my teachers, my family, my parents, my siblings, what's that guy going to be? What they wouldn't say, I guarantee you, is a professional bodybuilder on stage in his underwear at sub 4% body fat as having one of the best bodies on the planet. They wouldn't say a worldwide recognized podcaster and educator. And they certainly wouldn't say someone who's speaking for a living. Why? Because I had a learning disability and a speech impediment, or at least that's what I was diagnosed with. And so the reason I believe in your infinite potential is because one day I was there too. I was at that place where I was sort of looking like the deer in headlights and having no idea what I was going to do, how I was going to do it, but I knew I believed in myself. And so, gentlemen, ladies, I want to transfer that undying belief in myself to you. And it doesn't happen by me willing it to you. It happens by you taking daily action, disciplined action. Now, action is not the only goal, right? It has to be what? Effective action. So just because you're doing more work, right? I own a gym. I'm sitting here in a gym. And if I just worked really hard every day on cleaning the toilets and the bathrooms, would my gym grow? Inevitably not. So we have to learn, how do we be precise in our actions and effective in our actions? And therefore, you need a lifestyle operating system. You need to learn how to be effective in each of these areas. So, ladies and gents, at the risk of making this a long introductory podcast, I'm going to end it right there. And thank you for being here on day one. I'm incredibly excited to be here and share my life's journey with you, my mission with you, and hopefully empower you to live the highest and best version of yourself. Ben Pakulski in the